Guys, when it comes to prepping and survival, there are certain things that you just can't substitute. One thing today we're going to take a look at is the big stock pot. Something that you can cook a volume of food in one container. Or you can, haul water. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with a large pot. It may not be something that you use all the time, and especially right now. It's usually if you have a large group of people or you're doing something where you're maybe canning and you're putting together some food. But typically we don't use these. But in a grid down situation or just a crisis, having a big pot like this has a lot of uses. And again, it's not easily substituted for something else. And these are fairly reasonable. This is a 20-quart stock pot. They're common, especially in restaurants. It's stainless steel. There's a number of different materials. We're going to look at it, and we're going to look at some reasons why, to me, it's very important to have a large pot like this to be able to cook and for a lot of other uses. Now, of course, the first thing is just food. You need to make sure that you can cook a large volume of food, especially if you have a larger group. I mean, you have 10 people and you have a small sauce pot or just an average pot. You're going to have trouble, maybe 2 or 3 pots all at once. And when you're cooking on a fire or an open flame, that makes it really much more difficult. With a large pot like this, not only can you cook a good volume of food, but you can also cook for a community. You may have a prepper group, obviously. That's something that really works well. But one of the things about a pot that's really important as far as cooking is that it's large enough to where you can put game in here. So let's say you're hunting, or let's say you have a chicken and you want to cook it. One of the things about cooking game over an open fire is that you lose a lot of the nutritional value. And you want to gain as much of it as possible, especially when things are kind of scarce. What they used to do years ago, they'd take the whole chicken, they'd drop it in the pot of water, they would boil it. A lot of the bone marrow and the tendons and different properties that are in the chicken would seep into the water, and it really makes a very healthy broth. And it's one of the things that really inspired chicken noodle soup, because when we get sick, a lot of times we take chicken noodle soup. But the roots of that were from all the nutrients that came out of the whole chicken. And so that is a really important thing, to be able to put a whole chicken, so be able to put meat in here, or even if you're just cooking vegetables, you can get all of the nutrients and it'll all stay right there, and then you drink the broth, and then you preserve the water that you've used to put in here. Again, guys, there's not really anything you can substitute for this large tight pot. And if it is, it's something that may be contaminated. It may have materials that can make you sick. And so you want to be careful, and really having a good stainless steel pot like this, to me, is just optimal. Now, one thing about boiling water, if you're really needing some water and you have these small little pots, it's going to take longer to get it started. With a big pot like this, you can really get a lot of water going to be able to purify it. And so having water like this, 20 quarts is really not a lot when it comes to drinking water. And if you have a number of people together, or even just one, boiling a big volume of water is going to really make a difference than boiling water, then boiling it again, then boiling it again in smaller pans or pots. But also hauling water. If you're looking for a water source, whether it's even in your garage and you have a 55-gallon drum that you're storing water in, you can put it in here and then transport it to wherever you're going to boil the water or you're going to cook. And if you have a stream or a creek or a pond that you're getting water out of, again, this is going to be a lot easier than taking multiple trips. And it has these 2 handles, so you can have one person on each side to be able to haul that water. Water's pretty heavy. It's about 8 pounds per gallon. And so having these 2 handles on here really makes it easy to be able to take it and to get it where you need to have that open flame or whatever you're using to boil that water. We have rain catchment systems, and we have spigots, and we can put that water directly in here. It's just right around the house, so it's not a long travel. But if I have a smaller pot, it's going to be a lot of trips back and forth, and you're going to lose some of the water because it's going to spill. And this just really helps you to have a better volume of water. Now, a pot like this also protects your food. And so if you have food laid out and you're preparing, getting the fire ready, doing whatever, there are going to be typically flies around or insects or different things, and you can put it in the pot and keep it from being contaminated. And so just having that large pot allows you to put it down in there before you start cooking, Or let's say you're on the road, you're in a bug out situation, and you have your vehicle where you can carry this pot, and this allows you to be able, again, to protect that food until you need to use it, and it keeps it from being exposed. Now in a really tough grid down situation, you can actually put embers in here. And if you only have limited fire starting capability and you want to save those embers, you can put it in a pot like this and be able to transport it to different places. It keeps the fire from spreading. Yes, it will get hot and you can insulate it, but it's a great way just to keep embers together in one place. Of course, you want to clean this out once you start to cook or to boil water. And for that matter, when it's not in use, you can store a lot of items in here. It does take up a lot of space, and so you're able to put a lot of different items. That doesn't necessarily apply to cooking or to boiling. It may just be some items that you just need some room. So put them in the pot. You've got this space anyway, and so that way it makes a good storage container. Now if communications are down, this can make a great signaling tool. If you take a wooden spoon or a metal spoon for that matter, and you beat it on the side, and you don't want to damage the pot. It's one thing that's very important. But you can hit this pot and you can hear it from a long way off. Is that the dinner bell? Because it sure is annoying. But this is really loud. And again, you can use this to be able to send out a signal. I would use a wooden spoon. You don't want to dent the pot. But you could also use the lid for that matter. Now this is a 20-quart pot, but you can get, again, different sizes. There are larger ones, there are smaller ones. It's according to what your application is. For me, I like to have the larger pot. I may be able to set this up for the community, according to how things are going. Might want to have a soup kitchen type situation to where I can help others. But definitely if you have a large prepper group, these kind of pots are going to be very vital to be able to cook the volume of food you need all at once. And again, you're not cooking some and then bringing another pot in and cooking. This just gives you the volume that you need. And that's a pretty big deal. Of course, this is stainless steel and it's my choice. I just feel like it's really sturdy. It's going to last. This one is particularly a little bit thin, but you can get titanium, but you can also get cast iron. Now, cast iron gets really heavy, but it's a great way to cook food. And then there is the aluminum pots. Now, aluminum does have some hazards to it, and so, you really want to be careful. If that's all you have, I mean, people have been cooking with aluminum for generations. But honestly, having the stainless steel, it makes it easier to clean. It doesn't hide little pores where things get into the pores and can cause contamination. So having a good, strong pot is important to me. Stainless steel is one of the best as far as price versus weight. Now, again, this is a fairly thin one. You can spend a lot of money on a very nice cooking pot, a professional cooking pot. You can go to all different materials to set up whatever's best for your budget. The lid here is pretty thin, but it is going to protect what you have in there. Of course, there's a little handle with the rivets. The pot itself, I mean, this stainless steel is just very smooth, very slick. And this makes it easier to clean. Food's not going to get lodged into little imperfections and small little places. I mean, even like cast iron. This is just a very slick surface. Aluminum can do the same. So this is just going to give you that really smooth, easy to clean surface, and it's just going to make it easier to keep sanitized. Here are the rivets. Again, we can fix that if we had to, but this should hold up pretty well. It's a pretty thin pot. There are thicker pots, but again, it's still strong. And when putting the lid on, it is a little noisy, but again, it's going to protect that food. Now you want to protect the pot. You want to keep it from getting dented and dinged and scuffed up. If it's being used, it's being bumped around, it can get little abrasions all along the top. The lid can be bent. So you want to protect the pot, and you want to keep it from getting just damaged. If it is damaged, it can cause weaknesses. And so that's one of the reasons why it's very important to take care of your pot. Keep it clean. Make sure you have some scouring pads to be able to keep this in tip-top shape. You don't want to leave food that's in there and then recook and possibly get sick. And so keeping it clean, taking care of your pot is very important. I mean, one of the things about using a pot over and over is it can get burned through. So again, stainless steel is going to be a lot more resistant than possibly a thinner aluminum. But the aluminum's not going to dent as much. But again, there are some health concerns when it comes to aluminum. Now, one added bonus is I like to keep these type grates. If I'm cooking over a fire, I like to have the grates. It allows me to put them across, you know, whether they're two logs or two cinder blocks or whatever, and then the pot sits on here very firmly. And you know, if you just have an open flame and you put the pot right on the flame, you know, that's not good either. So these, you know, are just great to have, and you can get them at a lot of the camping stores. You can even get them at Walmart. This came out of an old stove that went out that we had to replace. And so I went ahead and took the grates out because we couldn't use it. But now I can use it, and I have these stocked away. Of course, you can make attachments to the handle to be able to hang over the fire, and there are a lot of pots that actually have a handle over the top where you can just place it. One thing though is important is to have that lid, because you don't want things flying in there while you're cooking, and again, to contaminate what you've worked very hard to put together. So guys, the stock pot, it's a large pot. It's great to be able to use, you know, even in a normal situation. If you have a lot of people over and you're fixing a big thing of chili, or you're wanting to have a big thing of soup, this is a great way to go. But then in a grid down situation or a natural disaster, being able to cook food for a group of people to help out, I mean, this really comes in handy. And then again, if it comes down to a really dangerous situation to where food is scarce, this allows you to cook food and to be able to retain as much nutrients as possible. And it sends out goodwill to your community if you want to have a little soup kitchen. Or if you're like me and you just love boiled peanuts, this makes a great way to cook a bunch of boiled peanuts for everybody. And guys, also down in the comments, if you have other uses for the stock pot, please leave it down below. It just makes it great for the whole community. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. But if in a grid down situation, this is going to be very important. What is on my face? This thing's loud. Ribbit, ribbit, like a frog. Just like boiling water and frog. Just like when you boil a frog, you start out with cold water and you move up to hot, and he doesn't even know it. And that's a pretty big deal. Do I need to say that at the end? It's a pretty big deal. So you can put really valuable boiling water, then boiling it again in smaller pans or pots or whatever. Guys, when it comes to prepping, there are certain items that are just not, okay. Guys, is a large pot. This is a stock pot. It's 20 gallons. 20 gallons, it's not 20 gallons. It's 20 quarts. One thing they did years ago was they take a whole chicken. Okay. Nutrients all in one large pot. Okay, what the heck is he doing? Oh, he's getting ready to go to work. That's what he's doing.